paid Navient a total of $35,374.26 over 14 years and 3 months for loans that totaled $26,250. So far, Navient has made $9,124.26 over and above what my loans actually were. And now they say they still want another $23,000 from me over and above that. Could someone please make that make sense? These are student loans. Let's get into it. This is Neptune's Flower, and I'm just going to get right to it. This is my first video, and I'm doing a video on Navient and the FFEL loan program. There's a bunch of us that are stuck in these old loans, these federal student loans that were done away with back in 2010. And Navient, in my opinion, is just extorting money at this point from all of us who have long payment histories. Okay, I want to make that clear. I'm making a video about my personal experience with Navient and what is going on with me and these loans. If you guys aren't aware of what the FFEL loans are, they were a loan program that was set up, gosh, I think in the maybe the 80s, and it was a way for the government to provide federal loans for students to go to college. The program was so bad and so controversial, it was done away with in 2010. All right, so for those of you out there like me who have loans with Navient, and these are these FFEL loans, you probably already know that Navient has been adding interest and won't adhere to the COVID forbearance, and there's a lot of controversy, and you probably also know that Navient just went through a class action lawsuit. In the meantime, before I get back to that, and I'm probably going to do a video on the class action lawsuit just and how it pertains to us, those of us with these FFEL loans, I want to just go briefly through what these things are. All right, so they were federal family education loans. It was a program that went to private lenders. And like I said, it was so bad, it was done away with in 2010. And the thing that really sucks about these loans is that they don't qualify for anything. Loan forgiveness, public service, none of it. Until October of 2021, as I understand it, the government has now put some things in place to help with these loans towards forgiveness. All right, so even if you go to the Federal Student Aid website, which is a website that is run by the Department of Education, you will see that this loan program ended in 2010. That's all they have to say about it. All right, so one of the big questions people ask, and I do too, I want to know, are Navient loans federal or private? Well, you know what? That's a big controversy. I actually called Navient last week, and you know what they told me? They told me they're both. They're both private and federal. And that's important, you guys, because that changes how we can approach anything. In fact, we have no rights. Okay, and I'll explain that in a minute. But if you just do a search, our FFEL Navient loans federal private, you will find so much confusing information. People are trying to figure out what these loans are, why they don't qualify for anything, and why Navient is literally screwing us, those of us with long, decades-long payment histories. All right, so I found a great article from the Student Loan Sherpa, yeah. And written by Michael Lux, and he talks about are FFEL loans federal or private, and can you get loan forgiveness? So this is a great article. He goes on to say that it's one of the most confusing forms of federal student aid. People can't even agree on the abbreviation. This is true. He says that student loan forgiveness is an option, but like other things with FFEL, it's complicated. Yeah, Michael, it really is. And as an FFEL borrower himself, he has personal experience with all the mess and confusion caused by these loans. If I'm scrolling around too much, I'm sorry. It's because this is my first video. Anyway, this is a great article. Basically told me what Navient said. They're both federal and they're both private. And why is that a problem? Well, because Navient gets to play both sides of the fence. All right, so let's talk about that for a minute. If you go to the studentaid.gov website, it has the student loan servicers, and you see Navient is nowhere on here. They're no longer considered a student loan servicer. But those of us with these really old loans, yeah, they still have our loans. Let's just talk about private versus federal loans. So Navient is considered a private bank, and FFEL loans are federal. What do I mean by they're playing both sides of the fence? For instance, private loans have something called a statute of limitations. And I found this article here on bankrate.com, which I find a lot of good, useful information about student loans on this website. I have done a lot of research and they have a lot of good information. But this person here, Michelle Black, she wrote this article and basically is letting you know that a statute of limitations is a legal time limit that creditors and debt consolidators must follow when trying to collect on a debt. So what are the statute of limitations on student loan debt? Well, they're only statute of limitations on private student loan debt, meaning that the debt collection statute of limitations governs how long a creditor can sue you in an attempt to collect an unpaid debt. All right, once statute of limitations runs out on the debt is considered time barred. So what does that mean? So let's say that my state has a statute of limitations of 3 years, and it does. And my student loans are through Navient and they're private. Well, if something happens and I default on them, Navient has 3 years to try to collect that debt from me. And if they can't get it in that 3 years, guess what? They cannot try to collect it. It's done. It's over with. All right. They can report it on your credit report, but they cannot try to continue. They can still send you calls, but my state has a statute of repose, and you can actually stop them from collecting after a debt is time barred. Being private loans, I thought to myself, okay, well, if these are private loans, then wouldn't the statute of limitations apply for the remainder of my debt with these loans? Well, guess what? According to Navient, no, because they're also federal student loans. And federal student loans have no statute. Federal student loans have no statute of limitations. You guys, they can collect forever. They can garnish your Social Security check. They can take your tax refund. They can come after your house. Federal student loans can come after you forever. They can take your disability or part of it. So there are people out there, Gen Xers like myself, some that are younger boomers in their 60s and 70s, that are having their Social Security garnished because of these old student loans, even people with long payment histories like me, and I'm going to explain that to you. Now, Navient was in a class action lawsuit. I will come back and do a video about that because it really doesn't apply to all of us with the FFEL loans, but it gives me hope. Okay, but I wanted to show this NavientSettlement.com if you want to come read up on it. So let's talk about my story. And for my story, we're going to have to go back in time because, like I said, I'm a Gen Xer. I'm 50 years old. All right, I went to college from 1996 to 1999. I was in my early to mid-20s, and I had to take out student loans. Back then, I had actually already gotten a degree, an associate's degree that I paid for myself. I worked full-time, and I paid for that degree. And then I decided to get my bachelor's. I didn't have the money to pay for the bachelor's. Okay, so I had a job that was full-time. I had living expenses at that time. I had a car payment. So I had to take out student loans. And back then in the 90s, there were no choices. You couldn't just shop around for a student loan. For instance, remember this page right here? All these servicers did not exist back then. You couldn't shop for a student loan company. You couldn't compare interest rates. None of that, like you do with a mortgage or a car, auto loan. It was just one way or no way. So we would stand in line sometimes for hours. I remember standing in line outside my federal aid building, and the line wrapped around the building outside twice. All right, so I was in line each time for about an hour. We'd finally get in there with the student loan officer who input our data and then came up with a student loan plan, and it was basically sign here, and once you signed, then you had student loans. You could go on and get ready, with your classes and whatnot. It was that way, or don't go to college, and that was it. All right, so we had to sign whatever it was they gave us if we wanted to go to college. So back then, I had 6 federal student loans total. They totaled $26,250. And I had a Perkins loan from my college. It was for $2,000, but I paid that off in 2004. And I received one federal Pell Grant for $1,563. And if you know anything about grants, they don't require you to pay them back. All right, so my total amount borrowed, minus my Perkins loan, $26,250. Well, I have been paying on these loans for a long time. And Navient, just Navient, because my student loans have been owned by other companies. Back then, Sally Mae was the one who was over all of the student loans. There were other companies involved like USA Funds and I think Ascendium or ACIA or there were some others. My student loans were owned by several different people who were basically, as I understood it, subsidiaries of Sallie Mae. I might have that wrong. I'm not sure if that's the proper term. But anyways, they were all governed basically by Sallie Mae. My student loans, once I graduated back in December of 1999, my payments began in June of the year 2000. Back then, we had no website to pay. There was no such thing as auto draft. We got little coupon books in the mail, and we had to mail in our payments that way. September of 2002, I decided to consolidate my 6 loans because I kept getting things in the mail saying, hey, consolidate your loans for a lower interest rate and blah, 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 lower payment lower payment amount. And at the time, I was buying a house. I had purchased a new car, and I thought it was a good idea. So I did that. I was not aware that consolidation reset the clock. So 2 years and 2 months of my payment history were completely wiped out towards any type of loan forgiveness because they just basically wrote a brand new loan. And that's what happens when you consolidate student loans. They reset the clock. I'd never even heard of resetting the clock. I had no idea what that meant. All right, so anyways, as my story goes on, in 2003, around April, I had just gotten in over my head financially with a new house and a new car and some other things that I had no business buying, honestly, and I did default on them in 2003. But at the end of 2004 and beginning of 2005, I got right back on track with Sallie Mae. They made me pay a debt collector who was owned by Sallie Mae. So I paid the debt collector, and then they put me back with Sallie Mae, and I began making payments. Now, around December of 2005 is when Navient apparently took over, and I made payments from December of 2005 all the way through March of 2020. When COVID hit, I even made extra payments to Navient, and I paid them a total of $35,374.26 over 14 years and 3 months, you guys. That means Navient has made $9,124.26 over and above what my loans actually were. That's just what Navient made off of me. All right, so I've paid over $10,000, I know, over and above what my loans were. That's crazy. And before anybody goes and says, well, what did you think? You were just going to pay the loan amount and that was it? Look, I understand operating costs. I understand that there are employees that have to be paid and there's a website that has to be maintained and all of that. I understand that. But I think $10,000 is excessive. So let me go back to Navient's website for a moment. So I just logged into my Navient account. And you can see December 2005 is when they took over these loans. And I want to point out too that I was paying my minimum payment was $145.30. I even made additional payments. I was making $50 or $55 extra payments. Well, guess what Navient decided to do? They said, oh, well, you can make extra payments. So all of a sudden, in April of 2007, they jacked up my payment. So guess what? They didn't get any more extra payments after me doing that. So yeah. All right, but let's just scroll through this. So this was 2006, 2007, 2008, 9, 10, 11, 12, 2013, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19. And then COVID hit 2020 is the last payment that I made to them. That is a long payment history. Like I said, 14 years. 14 years and 3 months of payment history, way over and above what I borrowed. Why is that not good enough? I mean, why do they want $23,000 more over and above the $9,124.26 that I've already paid them? I will be in my 60s by the time I'm done paying for these loans. This is insane. And they will have made somewhere around $32,000 off of me over and above what my loans were. How is this ethical? How is this moral? It's like those of us with these loans, we are being punished for getting an education. We're being punished for being a contributing, responsible person in society. We have to pay all this money. For what? Those of us with a long payment history like me, we have paid over and above. All right, so this is my story right now. I'm working on different solutions. I'm going to upload several videos. If you find yourself in the same situation that I'm in with Navient, or any other private bank with these FFEL loans, please comment. I'm going to be putting out a lot of videos. I'm looking for lawyers to talk to. This is crazy. Why are we being fiscally abused? So I just want to put it out there too, for anybody out there who's screaming about student loan forgiveness. Let me just say that unless you understand that some of us are in this situation we're in right here, that we have no control, that we have literally had nothing, no options for loan forgiveness or any of that. And we've paid our loans, we've paid our debt, we have paid so far above. Anyways, if you like this video, give it a like, and I'll be back. Thank you.